the centrifugal and the centripetal force. Two very significant forces. My name is Nicole Lutalo, and as I tell you about these two forces, I tell you a story for millions whose perspectives have been filtered by judgment, society, and a term many of us have failed to wrap our hearts around: self-love. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, a centripetal force is defined as a force that is directed inwards towards the center of rotation, whereas a centrifugal force is defined as the force that acts away from the center of rotation. If we take a look at the screen here, we see a circle with a dot on it. And as we have this conversation, I want you to pay attention to the movement of the dot, because each position that dot occupies represents certain things in my life, the genesis to the current moment. The dot circles around home. I am the dot, and home is where I need to be. Love is reared at home, strengthened at home. But for a very long time, I couldn't reach this home of mine. I sought love elsewhere. See, that was the centrifugal force. It kept me away. I'm sure most of you here, just like I have grown up in environments that are so vocal about anything and everything that you do. So it becomes more about impressing everyone around you to rid yourself of their negative, flooding opinions. Let me catch you up to where I'm going with this. Banange Nicole, you have gained weight. See, that became the standard greeting at every single family function I attended. Not one passed by without an aunt of mine telling me that. Or rather, they'd say to my mom, "Hey, Feli, what are we doing about our weight?" And don't get me wrong, I do love my aunts. But just as they expected me to look a certain way, society did too. Society, through social media, tells us a lot about how we should look and how we should love ourselves. And in most cases, when they tell us to love ourselves, we interpret it as a love that should be towards the physical, which of course is how we look. And for us to achieve this goal of loving ourselves, we do what is counterproductive, which in most cases leads us back to the same places, which is feeling unloved. And whenever I told people that I didn't love myself or that I was having trouble finding what they had, they tell me, "Nicole, you need to look in the mirror every morning and tell yourself you are beautiful or you're loved." Or rather, some would be like, "Nicole, how do you expect to get into a relationship if you don't love yourself?" But one question always stuck. How does one love themselves? I want to challenge you to think about the first thing that comes to your mind when you're told, "Love yourself." I want to take a wild guess here and say that for some of you, it was about loving what was on the outside. And that is how it was for me. For a very long time, I thought that loving myself was about loving what I had on the outside. Or rather, it was about loving myself after I witnessed the people around me love themselves because their love would radiate towards me. Or rather, witnessing someone who looked like me love themselves. But the people around me and the people on my Instagram feed didn't fall close to what I looked like, and they loved themselves. So to me, that just translated to I have to have the ideal body or be small or have a flat stomach for me to love myself. So one morning, I told myself, Nicole, you know how you're going to love yourself? You are going to lose weight. And trust me, at that point in time, that was the goal. And I was prepared to do anything and everything for me to love myself. So I starved myself. I vomited every time I ate and exhausted myself playing sports. But that just left me sick, weaker, and sadder, as opposed to help me get the body that I thought would make me love myself. Just like that dot, I was always rotating around that circle, and there was nothing pulling me inside. At some point, I actually didn't think it was worth it anymore because I had lost sight of who I was. Like, I couldn't even recognize the person who was standing in front of the mirror. No matter how many times I used that advice that people told me to look in the mirror every morning and tell myself, you are beautiful, or tell myself, you are loved, that love, I couldn't find it. It's like, even no matter how many times I used that thing of people telling me to leave notes on my side, on the side of my bed or in the mirror, I couldn't love myself. I was always overwhelmingly sad, and I needed something to pull me inside. I needed something to take me home. And home to me signified fully loving who I was inside, my internal manifestations, the things that made me who I was. See, breaking that force, that centrifugal force that kept me in circles, it took a lot of strength, I won't lie to you. It took an epiphany for me to realize how manipulated I was by society to believe that the way I looked encompassed all that I was. Let me tell you how it happened. So one morning, I was having breakfast with my cousin, and I was going through my Instagram feed. So I was really, really sulking. Like, you know when you're younger and then someone takes something away from you, or rather your parents refuse you to go somewhere that you wanted to go? Yeah, that type of sulking, but this time it was different. So she giggled a bit, and then she turned and asked me, Nicole, what's wrong? And I kid you not, with literal tears in my eyes, I looked at her and I told her, I want a flat stomach. And then she asked me, why? And I told her, because that is the only way I will love myself. This girl, she literally fell off her chair. She was dying of laughter. And I was so confused as to what was so funny about what I had just said, because to me, all I wanted was a flat stomach and to love myself. So I told her, Ayo, Anne, this is actually serious. Anyway, she finally managed to compose herself and bust me out of this little bubble by saying, Nicole, you are going to downgrade every single thing that you are based off the fact that you don't have a flat stomach? Okay, come on, Nikki, tell me. You have a flat stomach and it helps you how? Honestly. Nicole, if you are truly, truly going to love yourself, you have to look from the inside out. And I'm sorry, but there's no other way. I'm sure most of you here are wondering what looking from the inside out looks like, because to me, it sounded just like what everyone told me when I told them that I didn't love myself. But at certain points in time, I did find myself getting frustrated as to why her words kept circling and circling around my head for me to try and understand what she was saying, because she had that ideal societal body, which to me just translated to she already loves herself. But eventually, her words started to make sense. And I know you're probably wondering why I just didn't ask her when she told me, look from the inside out. I did. She told me to figure it out by myself. She's the type to give you that hardcore love. But eventually her words started to make sense. They started to develop meaning. And what she meant was, this idea of self-love shouldn't be about loving what is away from the center, but rather loving everything that you are inside of you. See, that centrifugal force, it kept me in circles away from home. But her words, they lit up that centripetal force that I needed to direct myself to the inside, which is why the dot is now changing course. I'm sure as individuals we know that we constantly seek for validation from external mediums as opposed to seeking validation from within ourselves. And that in most cases just leaves us unloved. See, that love that I was so heavily looking for on the outside, it was so fleeting, but I yearned a more sustainable, infinite, and renewable type of love. Before my cousin told me those words, it was like I was punched, thrown against a wall, and then slammed to the floor. And I'm sure most of you are looking for the bruises and scars on me, but that torture, it wasn't physical. My mind, it was tortured, my heart was scarred, and my brain, it was in an abusive bubble for 5 years. And I'm not going to stand here and tell you that I 100% love myself. Because just like that dot, I don't think there's ever a point in time when I will fully be home, when I will fully reach the center. But what I'm telling you is that we have to try to reach somewhere near there. We have to at least invest into this idea that self-love is not about loving what is outside. It's about loving what is inside. And I'm sure you're wondering what inside is. Well, to me, inside meant understanding who I was as an individual, my talents, what I bring to the table, understanding that there are certain things that make me, that make me worthy of the love that I was so freely willing to give to other people. Because that love, it was fleeting. I had to understand that what I have on the outside is not going to be here forever, but what I have on the inside is what people will remember me for. And with that, I was able to conclude that self-love is in no way tied to the physical, but tied to everything that we are. I know about this journey of self-love all too well to be confident up here and tell you, just as Toni Morrison did in her novel, The Bluest Eye. Beauty is not simply something to behold. It is simply something one can do. And it's not your fault that this idea of self-love has been embedded into you as something that you can behold. But you have to invest into this idea that you have so much that makes you worthy of that love that you're so freely willing to give to other people. See, I know about this physical appearance, and I know that this journey that you're about to take, if you're willing to take it just like I did, it wasn't easy. There was a lot of tears, a lot of frustration, but what I'm telling you is that it's worth it. And yes, that is a cliche statement. Yes, I know it is, but that is the reality of it. And if there's one thing that I would like for you to stay with from all that I have said today, is that physical appearance is fleeting, but the manifestations of who you are as an individual, now those ones are forever. Thank you.